Okay, Andy, really tasty game coming up at Craven Cottage this weekend. Fulham against Manchester United. Delighted to say I'll be there for Pro Soccer Talk. What's your initial thoughts on this game, mate? Because yeah, it's a new season. There are new players. There is new positivity around Manchester United, but there's still the scars from the last few years and what's happened to them. That I want to believe this is a new era under Ruben Amorim and it's different, but it's kind of hard. I think most Manchester United fans will feel the same as I do when they head to this game and watch this game against Fulham this weekend. What do you think?
Yeah, I want to buy into it too. After watching some of them in the preseason and then watching the opener against Arsenal, there's a plan in place. I think a tactical plan, I should say, still at Manchester United. We don't totally know what the transfer strategy is, and what profile of players they're targeting, if they have a pipeline that they're working on, or they're just going to continue to spend all of the money and then be able to recoup none of it. That they've spent a couple $100 million this summer, and they have brought in zero. And so I don't think that's quite sustainable. They've got some players to still move out of the club, but on the field, the positives for United is Ruben Amorim clearly took the period of time he had last season, got through the growing pains, made a lot of decisions, I think, on players that we're not seeing in the squad now. Rasmus Højlund and Alejandro Garnacho being two of the main ones, two of the most expensive ones. And he has just taken the team forward with his ideas. I love the Cunha and Mbeumo combination playing behind, maybe not Mason Mount up top. Maybe we'll see Benjamin Šeško in the starting lineup here soon. But, you can look at the attack and say, okay, this is going to be a good counterattacking team this season. They're going to score quite a few goals. They're going to create a lot of chances. But I still got questions about them defensively. It looked okay against Arsenal in the opener, but it wasn't the most expansive performance or just game plan from Arsenal either. I still got questions about Bruno and Casemiro as a midfield duo. So there's some questions, but things are, generally speaking, moving in the right direction for Manchester United. And it's been a long time since you could say that with real, actual evidence to back it up.
Yeah, 100%. And I was lucky enough to be at Old Trafford for that season opener against Arsenal last weekend. And yes, they lost, but I think the biggest thing for me was the reaction of the fans at the final whistle, Andy. I mean, they'd lost, but they were all looking around at each other like, we should applaud that. That was a good performance. And we, been here before, but we should have got something from that game had the finishing or not hit the post or David Raya didn't make a good save. So there was real positive signs, but of course there are some issues. When we look at the goalkeeper situation, what's going on there? Is Andre Onana going to come back for this one? Are they going to make a move and figure something out? We don't know. And I think midfield as well, you brought it up brilliantly. Bruno Fernandes, a wonderful player, but shouldn't really be playing in a deeper role in this system the way they play. And the player alongside him is probably the biggest issue they have. And obviously, Kobbie Mainoo is not fancied by Ruben Amorim because the fact that he was on the bench last weekend against Arsenal. I think his future at United is probably done under this manager. And Agate, Casemiro, against certain teams, fine. But if they want to get to where they want to get to, they have to upgrade that central midfield position. And I think they found the system. They found a general mix of players that they can trust and can carry out a plan Amorim wants. And there's that final bit in the final third. You're right. And Mbeumo, Cunha, excellent in their Premier League debuts for United. Obviously, Cunha will play slightly deeper when Šeško's fit enough to start, and that could be this weekend. And Šeško, I mean, I'm intrigued by that signing because it is that in-between, right, of potential. He's clearly got quality, but it's different. We haven't seen him in the Premier League before, so it's different than signing Mbeumo and Cunha, who you know what you're going to get. But the one thing that really took me aback by seeing him in person was how tall he is and how massive. We know, like he talks about Zlatan as his hero and his idol. He kind of wants to play like him, I think, his movement-wise. He's not really going to change the way he plays, I think, for coming to Manchester United. But I think they can do a lot of damage if they ask him to stay central, make those little runs in behind to open up the space for Mbeumo and Cunha. So I think there's a lot of potential there, Andy, in that top three for United, but they got to get a win, I think, this weekend and start the season. They got a really tough start to the season, but there is positive vibes for them starting this season, a new, fresh, clean slate under Ruben Amorim.
They need some actual victories, not just moral victories at this point of the season and this point of the project to build to not just it'll obviously build confidence within the squad, but also to keep the fans on side, because this little honeymoon period where they had a nice outing at Old Trafford, it's been rare for the last decade or so, and I think they'd like to keep that going. And so they're going to need to put together some results along to go with the performances. I'm just looking here at striker numbers. Šeško has a couple of seasons now, so he's a couple years older than Højlund was when he came to Manchester United. They're both 22. Højlund was 20 when he came over. Šeško 22 now. He's got a couple of double-digit goal seasons in the Bundesliga for RB Leipzig at the point of signing for United, and at the time that Højlund came over, he had just the one really good season at Atalanta where he didn't even get to double-digit goals. Not to belittle what he did there. He was highly rated as a prospect, but I do think that at the time the thought was, okay, this is a nice prospect to develop for a lot of money, and you're also going to have expectations that he produces right now. And that didn't seem feasible or logical or practical in any way, and it turned out to not be. We will see if Šeško can handle that big, massive step up, not just in terms of quality of the league that he's playing in, but the eyes and the focus and the expectations on him as well.
I do like that. I think the players they've added this summer, I think the character of them is that they don't really care about this pressure, and they're confident and have belief in their own abilities. They bought well. You're right. Have to move some players on to maybe get those final few pieces, goalkeeper, central midfielder, through the door between now and the end of the summer window. So let's wait and see. But decent start for Manchester United in terms of performance and the way it feels. Feels a bit different at the start of the season. In terms of Fulham, feels very similar. I mean, Marco Silva's been kind of complaining a little bit about not having basically any new players. They had quite a bloated squad, a decent deep squad last season, so you can understand the logic. And in previous years, Fulham, we know they've been spending money like it's going out of business, or just signing players when they didn't really need to sign players, and kind of tripped up on that a few times. They got relegated way back when, but they were solid at Brighton. I watched it for PST the first week of the season, got a good draw. It was a fair result. Got a late equaliser, but that was a fair result. What do you think about Fulham and their expectations for this season? Because last season they were in the European battle for a long time. Obviously, they're one of those teams, right? Top 10 and a good cup run. That is a good season in the eyes of their fans. Yeah. Feels like even without making any transfers, they're kind of on course for that again. But there's that group, isn't there, between sort of 15th and 8th, where they could finish anywhere in that group.
Yeah. I think we're in an era of the Premier League where if you are not getting demonstrably better, you're getting worse, and maybe quickly in the league. The way that teams have gone out and addressed this transfer window, not just the amount of money that's been spent, but the number of players that teams have brought in. It's a little less team building now. It's a little bit more asset management, I think. But when you bring in the right player and they hit for a year or two to then be moved on, the way that Brighton, who Fulham played on the opening weekend, have done the last handful of years, you raise your ceiling exponentially. And we've seen Brighton, they're in the European race a couple times. They've gotten into Europe. Fulham, it's a solid squad, but I don't look at any player in there and say, in a year or two, that guy could go for 50, 60 million to one of the big clubs. And it just feels like this is an era of the Premier League where you kind of need those players. You need those really incredible difference makers. You're not going to kind of scheme and game plan and 1-0 your way all the way through the entire season like they, did for 2/3 of the year last year. It worked for a time, and then it completely fell away at the end of the season, and so did they. So I think Marco Silva probably would have been quick to jump at a job had he been offered one this summer, and I think that probably says just about everything about just Fulham's position in the footballing pyramid, the footballing world, if you will.
And let's be honest, I don't think they're going to go down. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near the relegation scrap. I think they'll be as mid-table as you possibly could get, and that is still a great job for Marco Silva, considering when he took them over, got them promoted, stabilizes a Premier League team. But you're right, it's kind of like, what's the next step for them? And it'll be interesting to see how they can navigate that this season and beyond. In terms of a score prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 to Manchester United. I feel like this will be a really tight game, but could see some late heroics. I feel like we've seen that quite a lot for United against Fulham in recent seasons. But is that a pretty obvious score pick for me, Andy?
Only if it's obvious because I was going to pick it as well. Then yes. It's United will have. I think they will wear them down over the course of the game. The counter late on will be even more effective than it is early in the game. Fulham will try to control things, I think, just a little bit from the start, but eventually the quality that United have in that team. And they do have, like, Amorim has the ability to move some pieces around and change it up mid-game a little bit. Like, for all of the attackers that he's kind of shoehorning into multiple different positions to fit his system, he can come out of that later in the game if he needs to get really aggressive and push those players, comfortable in those areas of the field forward a little bit more. So I think they probably have a little bit more in this one. I'll go 3-1 though, just to be different.
That's fair enough. It's going to be interesting to see, you're right, how he fits in. Ahmad, even players like Xerxes, who does he go over midfield? And does Šeško start up top, as everyone is looking forward to see. So head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for the how to watch information, live analysis, reaction videos. We'll have you covered. I'll be there at the Cottage this Sunday. Cannot wait. Fulham against Manchester United.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.